nutshell introduction to the book per se. Man's search for meaning is like I said, it's the birth of logotherapy. What is logotherapy? For that to understand, we need to just go back a little bit into psychology to understand what are the schools of psychology that exists in the world. So the father of modern psychology, it was Sigmund Freud. And in a nutshell, he spoke about the fact that anything and everything that human beings do revolve around the whole concept of seeking pleasure. So if we are able to see pleasure in any situation, we are able to easily maneuver ourselves towards that situation, out of that situation. This school of psychology was challenged by a student of Sigmund Freud by the name of Alfred Adler, who came up with the behavioral school of therapy right now, which is a very dominating school of thought in psychology, where he spoke about the fact that it is not pleasure that people are going after, but what people are going after is seeking power. So as long as you are able to find something which is related to powerful, which will make you powerful at the end of the journey, whether it's financial, whether it's political, whether it's economic, whether it is relationship powers, makes your ego a little better, you will go through that effort or go through that journey in your life. Right? And that's something that became a dominating school of psychology in the times to come. For a student of Alfred Adler was Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl, for the first 10 years of his life, kind of advocated the behavioral school of psychology. He actually used behavioral therapy to treat patients. But as he was talking to patients, he kind of realized that it was not pleasure, it was not power that people were going after. What they were going after was understanding the meaning of why things have happened in their life. So the moment something goes wrong in our life, what's the first reaction we have? We don't say to ourselves that, okay, you know what? It's okay, I'm going to get pleasure at the end of it. We don't tell ourselves, okay, I'm going to get powerful at the end of it. The first question we ask is, why did this happen to me? So Frankl, through this book, started questioning the whole existence of psychology itself in the manner in which it was practiced. And he said that it is not pleasure that human beings are after. It is not power that human beings are after. But what we are after is understanding the meaning of what is happening in our life. Why is it happening in our lives? And there is a key difference between the meaning of life and what is happening in life. The meaning of what's happening in life. So meaning of life is different, but what's happening in life is a different meaning altogether.
Can you explain with some example if possible? What is it?
Yes. So in terms of, if you look at the understanding of life itself, a lot of us have various definitions of what life is all about, right? We can define life as, in various formats. We can say it is something to do with our breath, it's something to do with spirituality, it's something to do with religion, it's something to do with what we do with ourselves, and so on and so forth. What's the whole objective, the cosmos, the universe. We connect a lot of dots around it. We get into a very different zone when we start talking about the meaning of life per se, right? But what the meaning of what's happening in life is very, very subjective to human life itself. So it depends upon the individual's personal experiences in the manner in which he understands life per se. Right? So for a lot of people living here, for example, in this country or in the Middle East, they would say life is very tough. Right? It's a perception. For people who are earning very well and people who are living a good life in these countries, they will say that life is the best in the Middle East. And then there is the absolute lower class which will say life is the worst in the Middle East. Does that change the meaning of life per se? Everybody is breathing, everybody is eating food, everybody is living, right? But the manner in which they define life in a particular area, or the manner in which you define your own life in a particular country, is very subjective. It may be good for you, it may be bad for you. My experience will be very different, your experience may be very different. How we just spoke about an example, when you spoke about pay disparity, for example, right? For somebody coming from Asia, what I get paid is far better than my colleagues back in India or in other parts of Asia. And I'm really happy about it. Why? Because I'm doing extremely well as compared to them. You're coming from Canada, when you look at the structures here, you would be like, no, it's not enough. this is not fair, this is not just. Your perspective of looking at life here, let's say if I have to define my own life here, is very different compared to my own life. So there is a big difference between what is the meaning of life per se and what is the meaning of what's happening in your life per se. Right? That is what Frankl kind of started talking about. He started writing this book, well in the 1930s. And as time went by, he kind of came to he started writing the concepts behind logotherapy. And he started writing the book. But then World War II happened. And he was captured. He was put in the concentration camps, where he actually spent 2.5 years. So the first half of the book is actually his journey in the concentration camps. The second half of the book is the textbook of sorts when it comes to defining logotherapy. Now, how did he implement what he was trying to do in his life? And why did he feel important to actually capture what happened in the concentration camps in the book? Is because he started to put a lot of those learnings that he was developing in logotherapy into practice while he was in the concentration camp. So what did he say in the book? Or what did he say in logotherapy per se? In short, what is the meaning of logotherapy? Logotherapy means defining or understanding the meaning of life itself. The meaning of what's happening in your life per se. The word logo comes from the Greek word logos, which means meaning. So everything has a logo, right? This coffee shop, for example, has a logo, and the person who designed the logo would actually have a reason behind it, a meaning behind it. He would be able to tell you why I have designed the logo in the fashion that I've designed, right? If you look at a Starbucks logo, for example, there is a meaning behind that. Right? Just like that, each of our lives also has a logo. We all have a reason, we all have a purpose, we all have a meaning to our lives as well. And that is the discovery of what logotherapy is all about. It's all about understanding the meaning of life. The concept of logotherapy became very popular because of this book called Ikigai, which was launched a few years ago. And it became a worldwide rage, and many people started reading the book. It's a self-help book based on the Japanese philosophy of Ikigai, which also means if you know the purpose or the meaning of your life becomes much easier. Right? There is a direct reference in the book Ikigai of logotherapy, and that's why a lot of people suddenly got attracted towards logotherapy as a concept. Also, people who were not even aware about this concept suddenly got aware of it. Right? So what is primarily logotherapy all about? It talks about three things. We'll come to that. It talks about three basic things in life. One, there is meaning in everything that happens in life. Whatever happens in life, there is a meaning behind it. Okay? We may know it now. We may know it after a few days, few months, few years. We may never know it. Right? The follow-up book that he wrote after this was Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning, where he stresses on the fact that there are certain things which are beyond human understanding. And sometimes it's better to accept and leave it as it is. Because at the end of the day, we are human beings, we do not understand the science fully behind our existence. A lot of people enter into existential crisis because of this, because they try to understand the meanings of a lot of things that kind of go behind it. And here there is a direct reference where Frankl talks about that religion plays an important role for us here. He talks about spirituality in a very deeper sense. Right? Religion is a way of life. It helps us through its practices to reach out to trying to understand what life is all about itself. Right? But spirituality has a larger and a deeper meaning because that connects all of us. We may or we may not be religious in our manner. Religion is something that's a person's personal choice. You may be born in a religion, you may not necessarily practice it. Right? It's happening around the world. Everybody is born in a particular religion, but many people today don't practice religious beliefs or ways of religion. It's their personal way of how they do it. Right? But religion does have a major impact in human minds' understanding of the world, understanding of what's happening, and understanding of the ultimate truth, as he calls it. So there is a reason in everything that happens in life. Nothing in life is without a reason, without a meaning. Second, that he talks about, which is the fundamental rule of logotherapy, is as human beings, we are constantly looking for that reason, looking for that meaning. Our hunt for that meaning will never stop. Even to the last day of our lives, we will still be unclear in terms of what we were doing here, why we were here, what was our real purpose, what was our real objective, and what was the meaning of what we did in our life. We would not know it. The quest for finding of the meaning is an integral part of human life itself. That's why we don't stop thinking. That's why we always keep asking the question, why? The third thing, which forms the crux of logotherapy, is that the meaning that is understood by different people is very different. So the way you would look at the design of this store, for example, is very different. The way he would look at it would be very different. The way she would look at it would be very different. The way each one of us will describe the decor of this place would be very different. Why? Because we are influenced by a lot of external factors. And hence, our approach towards life is extremely different from someone else's. We are always going to look at life with a different lens, because there is our genetic makeup that decides a lot of things. Who we were, where were we born, which countries we were born in, what did we study, where did we do our schooling, what kind of subjects have we read, what kind of teachers influenced us, were we living in a single household, were we living in a house full of siblings, for example, or a joint family, did we get to interact with our parents, grandparents or not, for example, right? What kind of friends do we have, what kind of books have we read, what kind of careers are we part of, what kind of colleagues do we interact with, what do we talk to them, what kind of meetups we go to, what kind of books we read, what kind of influences we have in our lives. All of this will determine the way we would look at certain things happening in life. So our perception is shadowed by a lot of our own experiences. Having said so, that doesn't mean that what you describe as the decor of this place, for example, makes you right, or the way he describes the decor of this place makes him right. Both of us, both of y'all are right in your perspective. So the concept of right and wrong is very subjective. And that kind of is something that's elaborated in several other books. Frankl wrote about 39 books in his career. Right up till the 90s. He died in 1997, and I've read about 18 or 19 of those books as part of my course material and course studies. But he elaborates a lot on these points in his other books, where he goes to talk about that how the perception of things is different, and how he kind of looks at how each one of us look at things in a very different fashion. He gives examples of people as well. So for example, one of the classic things that I think most of us have probably heard about also is the fact that is the story about this guy in America who was this young boy of 14 years old who was caught actually stealing bread. And he was stealing bread because when he was caught and he was presented in front of the jury asked him, "Why did you steal?" And he said, "My mother had not eaten for 3 days." Now, what he did is actually the law of nature. It's the way how you survive, right? If your mother, your parents, your family have not eaten for 3 days, each one of us will go beg, borrow, steal. Whether it is right or wrong is a very different question, right? But he did what he felt was right at that point of time, and the jury did not prosecute him. In fact, they let him free, but questioned the whole establishment to say that it's a problem of the country per se, it's a problem of the society per se, that even in today's day and age we have people who are going without food and water. It's a perception, right? It's a failure of the system, the failure of the administration. Now, whether that is right or wrong is a very different question altogether. There are questions about morality here. There are questions about actual laws over here. But at that point of time, the boy did exactly what he felt was right, because his mother was dying and he had to find food for him, and he was not able to get food in the right manner or whatever. It's not that he didn't try. He actually narrated the story. It's not that he didn't try. He tried his level best. Nobody gave him work. Nobody gave him jobs. All he had to do eventually was to go and steal because his mother was dying. It's a matter of how you look at it and what lens do you look at it. So these three foundations of logotherapy kind of form the crux of what the whole book is all about. And how do you implement that in your life is, again, there is something called the meaning triad or the meaning triangle, as he talks about, where he simply says there are three basic things. And it is an individual psychology, so it's not something that will work for everyone. Okay, that's why logotherapy did not become a mainstream school of psychology, because it does not work for everyone. Because it's got an element of spirituality in it. It's got an element where you need to kind of really change the basic foundations of who you are as a person also sometimes. And in a sense, it also gives you a deeper insight into who you are as a person personally. There are three basic things that he talks about in which way you bring about changes in your life. And these are ways that we as logotherapists kind of try to implement them into our ways of life as well. And I will give you examples, real life examples of how these things have actually helped people in their life, and how somewhere I was able to bring about these changes to them, make them realize as to what it is. Number one is focusing on creativity. That's something that is extremely critical for all of us in terms of our human minds. We have two sides of our brains. We've stopped using the right side. We've stopped using the side which kind of is extremely important for us to bring about a balance in what we do in our lives. We are so engrossed with so much of logical thinking and things which are happening so scientifically and so process driven, so robotic in nature, that we've forgotten that we've got a side which is completely, which kind of completely sets us free in a way. And that is something that's essential for us. So I'll explain to you how this principle got implemented in actual life. So I had a client back in Dubai. She came to me. She's a restaurateur. She came to me with this problem that she came and attended one of the meetups like this, came back and did a one-to-one session with me, and told me about how fairy tale her life was. She was financially stable, had her own restaurants, running a great business, running everything in the manner that you could think of. Dream life. Great husband, children wonderful, in-laws were staying together, everything was fantastic. There was nothing wrong with her life. Basic problem, she was not enjoying life. She was unhappy. Okay, and that's where the discovery kind of started. Why was she unhappy? Despite the fact that she had everything that she ever needed from life, she was still unhappy. Okay, so a very simple exercise that I told her, I said, write down your routine, your itinerary from morning till night. What do you do in your daytime? Right? And she wrote down that from 5 o'clock in the morning till almost 11:30 in the night, this is what she does. And I was surprised to see, I knew this was going to come, I was surprised to see that she did not have even 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour to herself. So when I questioned her, she did not understand what I was asking. What do you do for yourself? What gives you joy in the day? She said, I love spending time with my children. That's parenting. I love spending time with my team. That's profession. I love spending time with my in-laws. That's responsibility. I love spending time with my husband. That's companionship. Sometimes I go out and I socialize with my friends. That's socialization. What is it that you do for yourself? What gives you joy? Your inner self. She didn't understand the question at all for a while. And then we went back into her life. Before she got married, 18-20 years ago, before she came here, what was she like? She was a painter. She was an artist at heart. She would draw, she would paint. Why did she give it up? She came to Dubai, got married, came to a new country, had a child in the first year, forgot about all of painting that she wanted to do. The next session, I gave her a paintbrush and a canvas and I said, paint. And she came out with a wonderful painting and tears in her eyes, because she said, I've never felt so happy in my life in the last 20 years or whatever, 18 years. Because suddenly she realized what was missing in her life. That joy of putting down her thoughts into what it was. A similar story, I had a client in India who was an artist, who was actually a musician and a well-known musician. Right? When I told him this story about creativity, he laughed at me. He said, it's something I do for a living every day. I said, exactly, that's the point. What you're doing right now is no longer your creativity, it's your work. And he admitted, he said, 80% of the music that I make, I hate it. I do it because my clients tell me to do it, right? It's only 20% that actually gives him joy. And it so happened that his creativity was brought about in a very different activity which was not linked to his work. He actually was good at baking. So now when he's stressed, he's depressed, he kind of feels like he needs to rejuvenate himself, he starts baking. And that gives him joy. So always understand that the creative side, and it's something that's mentioned in Ikigai as well, and we discussed this in the last session, that even in Ikigai they mentioned having a hobby, pursuing something that's going to keep you engaged, it's going to keep you involved beyond your work is extremely important. Most of us do not think about it. So when you said today about archery, I'm extremely happy about knowing that there is something that you do which is not related to your work. It's a passion that you should pursue, right? It's a passion that you should have, something which is not related to their work, something that will bring you joy in life. The second thing that he talks about in this thing is experiential living, which is living in the moment. Okay, so one of my most favorite quotes, which was written way back in the 1800s, was by this famous author and trainer Dale Carnegie, where he wrote about the fact that today is the tomorrow we were worried about yesterday. Right? Something he wrote way back like 200 years ago. Today is the tomorrow we were worried about yesterday. Procrastination is a great way of life, right? For us, for all of us. We just keep delaying things. It's going to happen tomorrow. Let's do this tomorrow. Let's do this tomorrow. And I always tell all my clients, you know what? Stop telling yourself this thing. Tell yourself, I want to do this today. You may practically start it tomorrow, but tell yourself, I want to do this today. Because your subconscious mind, the universe around you, the energies around us, the cosmic energies around us, they are listening to this every single day. The moment you tell something, I'm going to start this tomorrow, your subconscious mind and the universe knows it's not on top of your priority list. But the moment you say that I'm going to do this today, it's there on top of your priority list. You may practically start it tomorrow, or maybe a week later, or 10 days later, next month, next year, but it's top of your priority list. Experiential living is something we are forgetting, most of us are forgetting today, especially in the day of social media, in the day and age of social media. We're going out for a nice trek, and all we're doing is, instead of enjoying the moments, we're capturing all those moments, right? And immediately posting it on Instagram, and then living in this stress that, oh, somebody has not liked it. Why is this person not liking it? Why did this person not yet call me? Why have I got less likes on this photographs versus the others? I have a client who's a very, very big social media influencer. Okay, and I never name my clients, so you will never know who I'm talking of. But that client, he was going through something, as nowadays this in the world of psychology, this word is a buzzword. It's called meta stress. He was going through this meta stress. He'll put one photograph and then he'll worry, oh my God, I've not got likes. It's a way of living in another world, because you've done something and then you capture that, you put it up somewhere, and then you expect others to like it. Okay? You expect them to react in a certain fashion, and that doesn't happen. It causes you stress. You're still living in that moment that happened in the past. It's gone, it's done with, right? But now you're living in that moment which is not happening right now. You've forgotten to live in that moment which is happening right now. So experiential living is something that is extremely important. Having said so, unlike a lot of other schools and a lot of other philosophies which says, don't worry about the future is unknown and all of that stuff. Yes, logotherapy is also a practical science. We don't say don't plan your future. It's important. But you can't be living there. You can't be so obsessed about living in the future that you forget about enjoying today. So a lot of people, especially in the older ages, as they grow, they retire, and then they figure out, now what am I supposed to do in life? All their life they have saved, thinking I'm going to do something when I retire. The time has now come and they're still saving. Oh no, but if we get sick, what will going to happen? It happens. I think most of our parents have gone through that.
Yes.
Most of us have experienced it with our parents. They saved for a day. I'm going to go do a world tour. Now the time has come. Now they say, no, we can't. One, also physically, it's a challenge for some people. Expense-wise, maybe what they saved is not enough. That's also a challenge. And sometimes they tend to lose hope as well, interest as well. They're like, fine. I mean, I face this every day. My father is in his 70s, and now he says, you know what, everything is done. And I give him an example of somebody like Colonel Sanders, who started KFC at the age of 78. And look at what it is today. My ex-boss in my Japanese company is 86 today. Okay. Even today he's active. He picks up his bag 25 days, he keeps on touring all his offices. Right? You need something in your life, something that keeps on pushing you as well, right? Some kind of a motivation. But living in the moment, and one of the classic examples which I always give to people out of my own, my eyes that I have seen. So I was invited to one of these labor camps in Dubai last year, 2 years ago. And I thought that this place would be something that would be full of negative energy, right? Because obviously these are people who are working literally day in and out, 14, 15 people staying in one room, staying away from their families, from their homes. Like you pointed out, a lot of them don't get paid well. There's always this problem, right? To my surprise, when I went there, I found them to be the happiest lot. And I asked some of them, I said, how can you be so happy? Despite the fact that you work 14 hours, 16 hours a day in such high temperatures, you're not getting enough sleep, you're not getting enough water, you're not getting enough to eat, you don't stay in a great place, which we define as great, right? So when the guy told, and some of them told me, they said, one of those guys told me, he said, every morning when my wife sends me a photograph of my 2 daughters going to an English medium school, he said, all of these things don't matter to me. There's another guy who showed me a photograph of his house in his village, and he said, I'm the only person in my whole village who's got a proper house. And my parents are so proud going and telling the whole village that, our son is doing this for us. He says, we forget about all these things that we do. We start to enjoy the moment we are living. Now imagine if they start living in this thing that, I'm in a miserable condition. They will make life miserable for themselves. They will make life miserable for their employer. They'll make life miserable for the people around them. But they've chosen to remain happy even in that place because they've learned the art of living in the moment. I remember when I went and did this course on conscious manifestation with Eckhart Tolle. If you guys have read, he's a great teacher, and again, somebody who talks about, he's written 2 major books called The Power of Now and Stillness Speaks. He's a lot into meditation and stuff. So I was fortunate in 2016 to go and do a retreat with him for a week in Florida. And outstanding revelations when you actually come to accept where you are, when you start living in the now. And one of the questions you asked me, so why do you regret about what you feel about Saudi Arabia? It's because today I have chosen to look at Saudi Arabia from my own experiential eyes. In the last limited time that I have been here, a few months that I have been here, I have not had a negative interaction with people in the manner that I was told that this country is like that. I have some wonderful Saudi friends. They are more like family to me. They've told me things about their lives which they have not even told their parents or their families yet, because of the bond we've generated, because of the way we are. They've never made me feel that I'm an outsider. They've never made me feel, in fact, this time I was in Tokyo about 2 weeks ago, right? And somebody asked me that once you went to Tokyo, did you actually miss Riyadh? And I was like, you know what? For a change, I actually missed Riyadh when I was in Tokyo. But that's the way I was, because I decided to live in the moment. You want to talk about history? Let's talk about history. You want to talk about the future? We could talk about the future. But I don't want to live in the history. I don't want to live in the future. I want to live now. So as long as the place, the people, the experiences are pleasant, I would want to talk pleasant about a place. Because that's what it is. That's right now. Yeah. So I always have this, another thing that I always tell people, which I learned from someone, that always carry two buckets with you. One is called ABC, one is called AUC. ABC is actions beyond your control, and AUC is actions under your control. Right? This is linked to the next point of logotherapy, which is called attitude. Having a positive attitude towards everything that's happening towards life will change the way you look at life per se. ABC, AUC. If it's something within your control, act. If it's something beyond your control, choose to ignore it or just don't react. Try to still find the positive side. Not easy to do in most instances, but it happens if you have a certain perspective about life. And I want to again tell you another example of a client of mine who I coached for a very long time. He used to suffer from anger management issues, right? And he went for a vacation to Georgia. Had 4 wonderful days in Tbilisi. Was flying over to Armenia. Was stopped at the airport and was told that you don't have a visa to travel. A person with anger management issues, just imagine what would have happened at the airport at that point of time, right? He would have made sure that life was miserable for everybody around. He would have created a ruckus. He would have made so much noise. All of the things that he could have actually thought about a person with an anger management issue. What did this guy do? He politely asked them, with all humbleness, why am I not allowed to travel? And he was told that if you were going from Dubai to Armenia directly, you would get a visa on arrival. You're going from Georgia to Armenia, you can't get a visa on arrival because of your nationality. It's an ABC situation. He can't do anything around it. Nobody in that airport would have been able to help him to go to Armenia that day. Instead, he chose to do something else. What was it what was under his control?
Go to Dubai?
No, he actually called his hotel back, asked them that do you have a space for the night, went back to the hotel, spoke to a travel desk, arranged 4 days of extended stay in a beautiful village resort in Georgia. And he went and spent 4 beautiful days in a village resort, which usually nobody goes. And then when he came back and he met us and he spoke about that experience, I was so proud of him, because I said it's very easy to learn things, but learning is not everything. Implementing is everything. And the manner in which he implemented it was amazing, because he said I could just relate to the fact that it was a situation beyond my control. Why should I flare up? Why should I get angry? Instead, logically think, if he was angry, his direct reaction would have been, this was a disaster trip. He would have made life hell for everybody. He would have spoken so much negative about this trip per se. But he came back with all positive stories. So it depends upon how you want to look at life. And it's purely up to you whether you want to look at the positive side or the negative side of it. If you bring about positivity in the world, you will get back positivity. You want to talk about negativity in the world, you will get back negativity. It's as simple as that. It's all about the energy that you want to pass on to the universe. So creativity, extremely important for anybody to be grounded. Right? And at the same time, having a positive attitude towards life is extremely important. But living in the moment is the key to everything else. If we can continue to live in the moment, I think we've got a lot of stuff to achieve in life. And that's what logotherapy kind of talks about. So as a logotherapist, the way we bring about changes is by focusing on these 3 key pillars of life. And we've seen results happening. We've seen people discovering themselves. We feel people finding themselves, right? But it's not something that can help you to bring a transformational change unless you want it. Because at the end of the day, we believe as logotherapists that all the answers to your problems are within you. Right? Many people, almost 80% of the people who come to me for counseling, their first problem, oh, I hate my job. And I tell them, I'm not a career counselor. I will not be able to help you find a new job. What is the solution if you hate your job? Oh, I need to find another one. Why aren't you doing it? Now that is the challenge. Why aren't you doing it? And that's what they try to discover, and that's what they try to implement in their lives by bringing about those changes. Right? And towards the end, I want to just wind up with one last example of a client. Very recently, something happened. I'm coaching a client at this point of time who is in a particular field. She's been in a job. Sure. Who's in a particular job, and when we started her coaching, she came up with this thing that, you know what, I'm not happy here. She likes what she does, but she's not liking the fact that she's full-time there and she has to sit in front of a computer from 9 o'clock till 7 o'clock in the evening and all of that. So she likes her job profile, but she doesn't like the manner in which she does the job. Right? And at the same time, she's a writer. She loves to write stories. Right? And this is something she's been wanting to do for a very long time. Very recently, last week when I did one session with her, she informed me that she's already resigned from her job. And she started writing the stories that she wanted. Right? She resigned from the job. She was pleasantly surprised her boss did not accept her resignation. In fact, converted her job into a consultancy. So now instead of working on a full-time assignment, she can work only 3 or 4 hours a day on the profile which she really likes to work. Something she was super scared of in the past, because she was like, if I resign, you know, what will my boss think? What will my company think? And, you know, how will I run my house and whatever? But when she actually got the courage to go and talk to her boss, the boss only said, you know what? You're good at what you do. Don't leave it fully. Do it part-time. And now she's elated because she's doing that as well. And she's also spending enough time writing stories, etc. And just how she manifested the whole thing, because I taught her a few techniques about conscious manifestation, because she manifested the whole thing about storytelling. You know, a few days ago, she met a school friend of hers out of nowhere, 30 years later, who happens to be a publisher. And she read a few stories of her, and she's offered to publish her book. I mean, this lady is on a different planet right now. All she was able to do was to channelize her thoughts, manifest what she really wanted to do in her life. Because every morning she would wake up and she would manifest that, you know what, her life is miserable. When you tell the world the life is miserable, it's going to get more miserable. But when you tell the universe, and that's why having a gratitude diary, expressing gratitude for what you have every day, writing down 5 positive things every night before you go to sleep, 5 good things that happen to you in life. I have clients who struggle to find 5 good things. I've seen this. People who are deeply rooted into negativity, they find it difficult to write 5 good things that have happened to them in their lives. And when people tell me that, I count those 5 things for them. You woke up in the morning, wasn't that a good thing? You're eating good food as compared to a lot of other people, isn't that a good thing? You have a good stable job, isn't that a good thing? The fact that you have a house to live, isn't that a good thing? The fact that you're able to breathe, you're able to see, you're able to talk, you're able to walk, you're able to exercise, isn't that a good thing? 5 good things that just happened to you. And you can't figure this out because we've stopped valuing what we have. We think about materialistic things. Oh, nothing good happened to me today. Why? So what is good to you? Like only when you help somebody else cross a road, that's a good thing for you. That's a good deed as well for a change. But if you've eaten something nice, if you've had a good coffee, if you've met somebody wonderful, if you've kind of, spoken to somebody, if you were just able to bring a smile on your parents' face, isn't that a good thing? So start counting those things, and that is something that will bring about drastic changes. Small steps which will help all of us bring our lives together. Not every step will work for everybody, but choose what will work for you, and that's what it kind of grows into bringing about changes, positive changes in your life. So one of the last things in logotherapy, which Frankl always says, that it's an open science. It's always open for evolution. What he spoke about as concepts may be textbook concepts, but in implementation, it's something very different. And it differs from people to people. All your experiences are different. My experiences are different. And that is what forms the beauty of logotherapy.